Take me back to that horseback accident, the moment in Costa Rica. What did break open for you and beyond?
So when I went down to Costa Rica, it was shortly after the COVID scare and everybody was contained. And I went down there on a retreat knowing nobody. And I don't speak Spanish. Everybody was, come on, come horseback riding with us. When we stopped, he had been avoiding the water. And when we stopped and gathered to meet with the group of people we were with, the water hit his back leg. He spun around to see what hit him. And I went flying 6 feet up in the air.
Let's talk about your framework, Sassy, Classy, and Badassy. How did you come up with this? And please describe what it really means.
I remember when I started my coaching career in 2007, I went to what was called here in the States, CEO Space. I had no idea what I signed up for, but it was a networking event on steroids. It was a 10-day program. Bernie Dorman, who had started the program years ago, had come to Orlando where I was living at the time. And to meet, he goes around and he meets all his participants. And he looked at me. I had finished nursing and I got into coaching. It was shortly after my divorce. And he says to me, what's going to make you different than anybody else? When you look at the Sassy, Classy, Badassy, it's something that's insignificant. So it makes it fun to people who want to play with me. Badassy is all about taking those bold, aligned action steps. So I don't like to call them goals. I like to call them intentions.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to a fresh episode of The Underdog Protagonist. I'm Pratyush, and today we are joined by someone who does not only talk about transformation, she guides it, one aligned soul at a time. Karen Rudolf is a transformational strategist, holistic journey guide, and 9-time international best-selling author who helps people embody their what she calls sassy, classy, and badassy selves. Whether it's bouncing back from a traumatic injury in Costa Rica or designing her clarity tool for deep subconscious healing, Karen brings that kind of grounded wisdom that blends heart-based healing with real-world results. So without any further ado, let's get into this soulful, smart, and sass-filled conversation with Karen Rudolf. Hi, Karen. Welcome to the Underdog Protagonist podcast.
Thank you so much. Pleasure being here.
Likewise. But before we jump into our podcast session, could you briefly explain who you are, what you do, and what you're known for, just for our listeners to have some context about you?
Well, let me start with this. How long have you or your listening audience been chasing what's already within you, right? Just waiting to be heard. So who I am is my company is Tranquil SOULutions. I am a transformation empowerment coach, and I've created a product after 15 years that's the Tranquil SOULutions Clarity Tool. So we have all of the answers within us. So I just created a way digitally of creating it so we can pull those answers out of ourselves and do it in the privacy of our own homes. So so many people are embarrassed, and I've been coaching for a long time. I have a nursing background, and it's all around well-being because stressors are the number one killer. And the Clarity Tool really supports de-stressing and teaching people how to get out of their head.
Awesome. I had read your bio, and it highlighted a lot of struggles, if I be honest. You went from Costa Rica to clarity, and the journey is something that is worthy of saying out loud. So take me back to that horseback accident, the moment in Costa Rica, where what did it break open for you and beyond just the physical jill? Like, what was beyond that?
Well, just to preface that, I mean, I've been studying spirituality for years. I've done quantum physics, neuroscience. I've been world religions. I was always looking for something outside of myself. So when I went down to Costa Rica, it was shortly after the COVID scare, and everybody was contained. And I went down there on a retreat knowing nobody, and I don't speak Spanish. So I went with a group of people. We had a Spanish guide, and I am not far into horses at all. I have horses here in Florida where I live, and everybody was, come on, come horseback riding with us. But my in my intuition said, "Don't go." And I allowed myself to be guilted. "Oh, Karen, we need you. You're the horse person," and I allowed myself to go and should have stayed home. At any rate, we were riding along and I said, "The horse has sore feet." And the guy was like, "Oh, in a third world country, they don't always treat their animals the same way we would." And he had sore feet. When we stopped, he had been avoiding the water. And when we stopped and gathered to meet with the group of people we were with, the water hit his back legs. He spun around to see what hit him, and I went flying 6 feet up in the air, landed on my rear, and I fractured the head of my left femur, dislocated my back, and fractured my right pelvis. So it took 2 hours over a rocky road in a little car, to get to the hospital, which was, as I said, 2 hours away. And all I kept thinking to myself, I knew I had broken something, and all I kept thinking was, "Stay awake," and I kept saying to the gentleman who spoke broken English, "Keep talking to me, keep talking to me, keep talking to me." And when I got to the hospital and they took an X-ray and they told me what had happened, and they weren't able to do surgery until the next morning. So after surgery, again in a foreign country, I had no one to reach out to. No one from the group reached out to me or really contacted me. So I was alone for 3.5 weeks. And my biggest concern was how I was going to get myself home because the airlines that I had flown in on had basically said, "You have to walk onto the airplane or we can't take you." So, and I didn't have insurance, and to get a flight home and solo flight home was like $45,000. So I was looking for ways and means of getting really creative, and I paused and I kept taking deep breaths. The pain was excruciating. I'm not going to lie, it was excruciating. But all I kept thinking was, when I'm brought to it, I'll get through it. I just need to breathe and really be present to what's happening in the moment and focus on my healing as opposed to focusing on the pain. I remember hearing once, "Pain is your friend if you make it so." So what you think about, you bring about. So I kept thinking, okay, if it's going to take me out or I'm going to really make friends with it. And I remember so vividly saying, "Okay, I'm gonna focus on my healing." And because I had done team management leadership and I'm a communicator as part of my job as a creative problem solver, I knew I could solve this challenge, but I had to get really creative being in that space. So I created a team and I said, "I'm gonna focus on I'll have the overall say, but I need to find a way home. I need to find an airline that's going to help me get home. I need to find funding to get me home and funding to pay the hospital." So it was like the team just went into action. It was amazing. But the journey of healing was miraculous for me because before, as a spiritual individual, I remember before I got on the plane, I said, "Okay, I know there's a message for me in this journey. I have no idea what it is, but I'm open and receptive to learning it." And before I got on the plane, the word surrender came for me. And I was like, "Oh, this is so, I don't like why they're going, I'm going to surrender anyway." But when I was in the hospital, it was really surrendering to the moment and really being present to what is. Because as I looked out the window, for me, coming from a flat country, a flat part of the country, and looking out, for me, it was a mountain. For Costa Rica, where I was, it was a volcano. And all I kept thinking in my mind and looking down at my legs that barely were able to move and my big toe, well, I was able to just wiggle just a little bit. They had told me my chances with walking were going to be very slim. And I kept looking at this, I thought was a mountain, and then, like, how am I gonna traverse that? Like, how am I gonna get up this? And then I remember in scripture, it says, the faith of a mustard seed and focus on what's in front of me, even if it's just one little toe, getting to the top of that mountain, I am determined I'm gonna do that. And I kept telling myself every day and every way, my body's healing. Every day and every way, my body's healing. On a cellular level, I will be walking, and today I'm walking.
That's truly inspirational. And I have listened to a couple of podcast episodes where you have a beard, and you often speak about from imposed to empowered. What were some of these imposed identities that you had to shed during this phase?
Well, for sure, I had to vulnerability. I had to allow most of the orderlies and the nurses were male. And I mean, I was butt naked. And you just have to be with what is. They had me in a diaper. It was, I don't want to say it was degrading because I come from a nursing background. So I understand it. Being in the situation, it was very uncomfortable. But at the same token, I had to learn to surrender and not only surrender, but I had to be willing to receive because they were giving me care. I could have fought it, but was it done me any good? So it was constantly learning to get back to breath and allowing myself to be in the moment and trust the healing process. And this was my team, part of my team that was helping me get there.
Great. I mean, just even though we are on the other side of the story, it's easy for us to, say like, "Oh, so mad," or this easy to say or convey our feelings in words because they are not on that end of the story, right? We are just listening on the listener's end. But there must be something. There must be a lot of things that would have taken a toll on you emotionally, spiritually, and probably professionally as well. So the healing is something that you do physically, but how did you heal these three factors in your life?
Uh, time. I hate it over time because nothing happens immediately. But you also have to remember I've been doing this. We all have experiences. My experiences started when I was young, My experience started when I was sexually abused at 11 years old. My experience started with, I got divorced. My spirit, like we all have things that happen to us. I have the willpower, right? I have the choice to choose to look at them and I could say, oh, look at me, I'm the victim, and oh, life is, falling apart, and, woe is me. And then I'm stuck in time, or I can look at it and say, which I chose to do, especially in Costa Rica, there's always a silver lining, is as far off in the distance as it appears in the moment, especially when you're in pain, in each one of my experiences, and there's been so many over the years. I'm a little older than you, so I have a few more, but so many of them over the years, I look back and I'm like, all of those brought me strength and resilience. And what can I build with that to create who I'm going to be today and support the people that I support and create something like the Tranquil SOULutions Clarity Tool that's going to really be here to support others as a result of my experiences. So when I was in the hospital, I remember very vividly speaking to my doctor, was the only one that spoke English. And I said, listen, can you please tell the nurses I have a scheduled workshop that I had planned. I had 58 people in there, and I had IV fluids, and I'm in a hospital gown, and I said, "Can you please close the door and give me an hour? Because I promised these people I was gonna be on that call." So I still showed up. Even when I was down and out, I still showed up. People thought I was crazy. Let them think what they think. I had to do what was right for me. So as a result of that, I remember always saying to myself, "What's the silver lining?" And I always, no matter what I've been through in the past, I always get to gratitude. I'm still alive. I'm still here. I'm still breathing. And I just start looking for all the things that I can be grateful for no matter what. I'm in a country where I'm being supported and I'm being taken care of. I have a bed. I have IV fluids that are keeping me nourished. Like my dressing's being changed, and you just start looking at the minute stuff and it starts building into this, I'm going to get through this. Like I know I'm being guided toward it. So
Let's shift gears, Yeah, let's talk about identity building. Let's talk about your framework, Sassy, Classy, and Badassy. And I'm just genuinely curious, like it's such a humorous touch to branding and coaching. How did you come up with this? And please describe what it really means.
so again, there's so much significance in the world today. So I wanted to I rem I remember when I started my coaching career in 2006, 2007, I went to what was called here in the States, CEO space. And I had no idea what I signed up for, but it was a networking event on steroids. It was a 10-day program, and Bernie Dorman, who had started the program years ago, had come to Orlando where I was living at the time, and to meet. He goes around and he meets all his participants. And he looked at me, and I had just started I had finished nursing and I got into coaching. It was shortly after my divorce. And he says to me, "What's going to make you different than anybody else?" And he was like inches from my face. And he said, "There are gonna be 10,000 coaches at my program. What's gonna make you different?" And I just felt myself go splat on the floor going, "Oh my god." So after he left, I started really looking, and this has been how I start my coaching program with everybody since. It's like, "What do you want?" I start looking at strengths, I don't look at weaknesses. So one of the things that I am is very visual. That's one of my strengths. Because I'm very intuitive, I hear things and see things that other people don't. So when people are stressing or in overwhelm or unclear or can't make a decision, a lot of times it's their self-confidence, right? And they're questioning themselves. They're up in their head. So Sassy is all about really getting your confidence, the self-confidence up and the self-worth. And I take them through a process and journey through that first and foremost. The classy is all about stepping into the knowing, the inner wisdom that we all have, but we're so busy in our heads that we're doubting the little voices that we're hearing. So I take people through that journey of really finding not just the self-confidence, but trusting themselves that when they're hearing these things, it's their GPS system that's taking them where they need to go. You get in a car, you put it in your smartphone now. Where do I need to go? If you don't know where you're at and where you're going, you're never gonna get there, so it's the same context as that. And the Badassy is a play, and I get some people that are like, "Ooh, you can't say that," or, "Ooh, like, I'm not saying anything that horrible, number 1, and number 2, people always laugh, and it's like, we don't laugh at people, right? So Badassy is all about taking those bold, aligned action steps. So once you go through the journey, you know where you're going, then how are you gonna get there if you don't know what steps you're gonna take? So I don't like to call them goal, I like to call them intentions, because when you have set an intention, you're now putting it out to the universe, right? And you're actually getting support from the universe as well as tapping into that inner guidance. So I've been doing that, and that's part of the back framework that I put into the Tranquil SOULutions Clarity Tool as well. So when people purchase that product, they're now getting Karen in their back pocket 24/7 at a very reasonable cost. And in 2007, I remember it was a download for me, and I said, "This is I declared, in the beginning was the word, right? So I declared this is who I was gonna be in the world, and I'm looking around going, "I don't know where that came from, but okay, yeah, I guess I'm on a path," you know? And I was questioning myself, and I was really going between my head and heart, but we have 3 centers that guide us, our head, our heart, and our gut, that gut feeling. The heart is the intuitive part, and the head was the ego, which is there to protect us, right? But we don't need to listen to it. Thank you for sharing, right? But I really wanna I knew not to get on the horse. It was like a hippie, but I allowed myself, right? So it's like, who are you gonna listen to? So they're all experiences, right? And I'm like, "Okay, I won't have that experience again. Been there, done that. That was painful." But when you look at the Sassy, Classy, Badassy framework, it is something manageable. It's something that's insignificant, so it makes it fun to people who wanna play with me as opposed to like, "Oh, what for this week, and where are we going with it?"
Let's take a scenario. Let's think of someone who is playing small or trying to play nice. How do they start reclaiming their own flavor or power?
Well, first you have to know who you are, right? Shakespeare said in 1533, I believe, in Hamlet, "See thine own self be true." It's also biblical, right? It's very spiritual. So when you know yourself, you know others. So when I take people on a journey, it's like I said, make a list of all your strengths. Make a list, the good, the bad, and the ugly. No one has to see you're ugly. I mean, I do it for myself all the time, and I'm like, oh my God, Karen, that doesn't sound good. It doesn't look good, and it doesn't, more importantly, feel good. So if it doesn't feel good, you have the power to choose to change or not. Not is still a choice. So when you're looking at it powerfully and realistically, it's like, what can I change right now? What can I look to improve later? And what would it take? What aligned action steps would it take me to align with what I want? Because what you want is your GPS where you're going, right? So you you've gotta, before you hit rock bottom and get stressed out and everything else, it's like we don't know what we don't know until we learn it. So be true to yourself. Get to know yourself first and then get clear on your why. Like why do you want what you want? And once you get your why, then we could start putting that in a GPS system and saying, okay, there are going to be obstacles along the way. I mean, when you're driving, there could be a traffic jam, there could be an accident. How are you going to be able to respond to it in kind where you can move upon to it without freaking out and going reacting to it, going, oh my God, there's a trip, all these people. And, we just keep expending energy. And if you think of life as everything is energy, where are you expending it? Are you wasting it? And on whom, more importantly, are you going to waste it on when you don't put on your own oxygen mask first?
Let's talk about solutions that you have devised. It's a clarity tool that you play. But I want to understand that what clarity it really gives. Like, does it give professional clarity, personal clarity, relationship clarity, or is that something more deeper? And how does it help people break that stuck pattern? I'm feeling stuck somewhere. I don't know where, but probably professionally or mentally. So, how does this clarity tool help me do that? And where does it really put pressure on?
Takes pressure off. So just to make it clear, right? It takes the pressure off. We put the pressure on ourselves by living up here. So my company, Tranquil SOULutions, was also a download. And the solutions is the mental, emotional, physical, and spiritual. So I've educated myself in all of that area. And again, I did it for myself because I was going through all these experiences and I didn't know how to deal with the overwhelm. I didn't know how to deal with my health when my adrenals were failing me because I was so stressed out. I didn't know how to deal with a lot of it. So I use a lot of what I've learned in the framework along with the Sassy, Classy, Badassy, right? So I've taken all these years' experiences and put it into the back end of the Tranquil SOULutions Clarity Tool. So when people come to me for the stress, again, is like huge. They don't know, it's programmed for relationships. It's programmed for health and well-being. It's programmed for wealth and career and purpose and passion. It's got all of these Jungian psychology behind it. It's got NLP, neuro-linguistic programming. It has all of my knowledge over these years put into it. So when you ask it a question, and it's been tried and true because I've taken it globally on a physical scale, of a tangible scale, I should say, and it's got incredible feedback. And then people were saying to me, wow, I wish I would have this at home so I can do it myself because a lot of people are very people pleasers, right? And they're going to tell me as their coach what they think I want to hear rather than being straight and authentic. But the more authentic and vulnerable you are, the easier and the quicker you'll get for these problems. So the tool allows you to be very vulnerable. I'm not seeing it. Nobody's seeing it but you. So it's extremely private, extremely safe. And the feedback has been unbelievable. So it could be, I have, I personally, I used it. I have a team that supports me in my business. And I had a new team member that I was attempting to talk to, but they weren't getting me. And I had to take me out of the equation in a sense. And it was right before team me. I'm like, how am I going to get through to them? And, it was in my head. I had just woken up. And I went, wait a second, Karen, you created the clarity tool, put it in the clarity tool. So I put my like chapters in there, and it just mirrored back to me what I already knew. So I went from that escalated state to like, "Oh, yeah, I got this," and I was able to flow through that meeting. So that was one idea. I've had people talk about there was somebody who had, sampled it because we beta tested it for a while. So I was able to during the beta test, I saw what was going on. But after the beta test, I'm no longer they get a private link. So, they had somebody who was becoming when somebody dies, they're the one that goes through the process, I forgot what it's called. So they didn't know what the steps they were gonna use to manage from beginning to end, how they were gonna manage it and organize it and such. They put in the clarity tool, that gave them a result. Like somebody who had health issues, they were able to look at it and create aligned steps that align with their challenge of that. Um, but I get relationship problems all the time because we're people pleasers by heart. We don't wanna intrude on our partners or our coworkers or our bosses. So it really aligns you with not making people wrong, but approaching it from a different it's all about shifting perception. The tool is all about looking at it and shifting perception. You know, we talked earlier about the traffic jam. You know, if you're standing at 4 different corners, you're gonna get 4 different perceptions of that traffic jam or that accident or whatever, right? So it gives you different perceptions, and you get to see what fits best for you because everybody, I don't care who you are, you have a story. And you have a perception of that story that you created when you were before 6 years old. And then between 6 and 13, you're looking for evidence to make that right, whether it's right or not. But then you look for evidence your whole life to say, that was my truth back then, and it served me because I was a child and I needed protection. As adults, we don't refresh, and press the refresh button and reboot our computers. So by creating clarity for ourselves, we're able to reboot that computer and look at it differently to create a new story that's going to serve you moving forward to what you want.
Means it's very deep. And the way you try to heal someone, I think you're doing it subconsciously. And I feel like there are there are something even deeper that sabotages the confidence within people. There must be some patterns. What common patterns are you seeing people have been implementing subconsciously that is secretly sabotaging their confidence?
Well, again, it could be a barrage of things. You have everybody, as I said, has an experience before 6 years old. And some people actually have it in utero or before they were born. We all have that subconscious mind, whether it's true or not for us. It's who we be, right? So I don't judge anybody. I look at them and say, okay, what's your truth? And let's work with that. And where do you want to go? Again, right? So for instance, abandonment is a huge one, right? You have little Johnny who goes to the grocery store, and I don't know how it is where you live, but where we live, advertising is huge, and propaganda with advertising is huge. And we have the cereal boxes at the level of and I'm aging myself because when I was growing up, the cereal boxes had toys in them, little, like Cracker Jack boxes, little toys. Well, it's at kids' eye levels for a reason, right? So little Johnny's going down the cereal aisle and he's looking at all the toys, and mom's going down the aisle with the carriage, and mom starts turning around the corner, and little Johnny's not following suit, and he looks up and he goes, "Oh my god, mom abandoned me," right? Well, mom didn't admit. She's like, "Come on, Johnny, let's go." He didn't hear her, and now he's freaking out. He runs and he gets mom, and in his subconscious mind to protect that child, mom abandoned me. Or you'll have another story where, a dad get leaves and the kids are home with mom, and then they grow up in a fatherless relationship, and sometimes it could be a motherless relationship. What they're protecting their little innocent selves by saying, I was abandoned. Right? Were they actually abandoned? Yeah, yeah, if somebody leaves and they don't come back, to a degree, it's abandonment, right? So they wanna be seen, heard, right? Our core functions, seen, heard, and loved, right? If those are not being met, those three core values are not being met, we're going to make up stories to have those be met. Right? Oh, I'm never heard. No one loves me. Well, woe is me. Oh, and then, you get in a relationship and you're looking for evidence why that person's going to abandon me or that person's never going to love me. And then they self-sabotage themselves by what's coming out of their mouth or blaming the other person or not giving them a chance because no, first off, no one's perfect. I'm not perfect. They're not. You're never going to find perfection. But we come with expectations which are way too high to really allow people to step up.
Yeah, I just don't agree with that. I think there are a lot of people who are successful, who are doing good on paper, but secretly, if you look behind the scenes, they're shrinking inside. How do you coach someone who's successful on paper but secretly sinking?
Well, I call that burnout. I call it burnout because they have they have that people pleaser, right? Because you want to please your boss, or if you're the boss, you want to please, you want this personification that everything is good, but then they don't know how to harmonize, right? Because if you look at energy, if a lot of people will say, "Oh, I got to balance my life," well, you can't balance your life because energy is always in flux and in motion, right? So what you want to do is you want to harmonize it. And if you want to harmonize it, what does that look like? You've got to know yourself first. You've got to get back to your why first. And you've got to create boundaries for yourself, which most people don't know how to create boundaries because a lot of people have never learned, and it's not something you learn in school to create boundaries, right? So what happens if you don't create boundaries? The expectations are thwarted, and then there's disappointment, and then you're angry, and then you get really pissed off, and you start acting out, or if you don't act out, then you internalize that stressor, and the body never lies. So the body will, if you don't learn to emote it, right, the body will hang on to it until you get so sick that that's where the cancers come in and the diabetes and the heart problems and so on and so forth. So it's really getting clear with who you are, what you want to be, and how you want to put yourself out there.
Yeah, exactly. Uh, let's talk about these kind of people who want to start to redeem themselves. Okay. You have talked about what is happening subconsciously. We have talked about if they're burning out, what should they do? But let's break it down. Let's break it down into baby steps. I strongly believe on how hugely potential they have and how much transformation in baby steps can be. So let's talk about what baby bold step that these people can take to start stepping into that their badassy self.
Sassy, classy, badassy. So, it's doing a self inventory. I remember studying when I first started my journey, and I had given up nursing to raise my family, and I had no idea divorce was coming. So talk about burnout, talk about stress. I had to not just be there for myself, but I had to be there for three children, young children. And I was like going, the sky's falling. Which way do I go? Which way do I go? A lot of times, people in who are employees or employers are going through the same thing. They're getting thrown at. Well, I've got clients coming at me. I've got the employees coming at me. I've got and you've got all this stuff, and then you go home and you hear the wife or the husband, coming at you, and it's like we don't stop long enough to take the pause break. Breathing is free. I can't stress the power of the breath. When I was in extreme pain, like in Costa Rica, I pause. I breathe. I call it the butterfly technique because I like to use metaphors in my practice, in my coaching. And if you look at a butterfly, right, the butterfly, the caterpillar, he eats and eats and eats, and he doesn't know what's coming at him. And all of a sudden, he freezes. And all of a sudden, this cocoons start happening. And so he pauses, right? And all of a sudden, this transformation goes on where, he stops, pauses, right? Stop, change. Well, I shouldn't say change because it's stop, change, and shift. So if you stop and you pause, you take that breath. What's happening when you pause, you're oxygenating your brain long enough to think clearly. because what's always lacking is clarity. That's why the clarity tool, right? So when you really get clear on what you need to do, the Badassy action steps, right? Stop, change, and shift into that next one action. Just taking in, like I said with my toe, one little action step is going to get me closer to the top, no matter how small. And then acknowledge yourself for doing it. Celebrate, right? The butterfly takes off. It's celebrating life. It's got wings, right? So we don't stop and celebrate. How do you know what your successes are? How do you know how to put yourself out there, next? You It just becomes the grind. You do the same thing over and over again. You go home, you do the same thing. So we create habits and patterns which are no longer serving us. So when you stop and pause and lean back and say, okay, let me take an inventory. Years ago, I'm a huge believer in mentorship. I'm a huge believer in masterminds, and I was in a mastermind for Napoleon Hill's book, Think and Grow Rich. It's the second largest selling book in the world next to the Bible. And basically, people are like, "Oh, I'm gonna think and get rich, money rich." Well, wealth comes in health, wealth, relationship, right? It comes in many forms. And if we don't pause to look at what our definition of wealth or success is, right? We all have a different perception of that. If we don't stop and look at that, again, it's like it's gonna be the same patterns over and over again, and nothing's gonna change. So when I was doing for 4.5 years, I was in that mastermind over and over and over again, reading Think and Grow Rich. It really is about taking that personal inventory and checking yourself off. Like, am I integrous? Am I keeping my word to myself? Right? We give our word, but then we back off and we just let it go. Well, what are people going to say and think about you? They're not going to respect you. And then we go, nobody's respecting me, and my employees aren't respecting me. I don't get respected home. But you have to have respect for yourself. So we're all mirrors of each other. So if you see it out there, you got three fingers coming back. Be your own advocate, be your own mentor. Because if you see it, when you spot it, you got it. And then you have the choice to choose to change it or not.
Uh, most a lot of times, we as humans we act on inputs, whether it's a decision, whether it's a scenario, whether it's a situation. Most of the times, the way we act is on inputs. Sometimes it's good, but most of the times, I think it's a wrong decision that we end up making because we do not take pause and analyze deeply. For some scenarios, it's important to stay silent, but in some scenarios, you have to speak. But you can't be hard on yourself, or you can't be hard on the person in front of you. You have to be soft. So, how can one maintain that gracefulness while being bold and not let silent take over?
Right. Usually silence is a form of people pleasing first and foremost. When I studied world religions, the one thing that was the common thread amongst pretty much all religions was compassion. And when you're true to yourself and you're authentic to yourself, compassion, self-compassion is it. So if I'm being compassionate to myself and I'm being loving to myself, I'm going to be love out there in the world. So through communication, and a lot of times people have not learned communication skills and how to articulate things. But when you create boundaries for yourself, there's ways of saying things and there are ways of saying things. You can speak authentically. I feel what I'm observing is, right? Because you're owning it. And what I'd really like to see happen is fill in the blank, right? You don't have to be hard out there. Hardness is like vinegar. You're not, you can get salt. I mean, you can put salt in an open wound, or you can sprinkle honey on it and get the results you want. So it's a choice. It gets down to a choice. But because people are we're in a society where everything is fast, quick. We want everything yesterday. And, so what's happened is we've trained ourselves to react rather than respond. So if you want that honey out there, you've got to pause, stop changing shit, be a butterfly, right? and really get into the other person's world because you can't walk in their shoes, but you could understand them a little better through conversation and asking the right questions. We don't ask enough questions. We don't ask enough questions to ourselves, and we don't ask enough questions to others. So the Tranquil SOULutions Clarity Tool, getting back to that, in this scenario, is it asks those deep questions that we don't, number one, know what to ask or how to ask them. And when you learn, right, it's like going to the gym and getting that muscle memory. The more you start asking them, then you're seeing others in a different light. When you know yourself, you know others.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Karen. I really want to drag this conversation forward as much as possible, but unfortunately, we are bound with time. But before we, wrap up this podcast, we do one segment with every guest that comes to this podcast. This is a rapid fire segment. Okay. I'll ask you 5 rapid fire questions. The catch is you have to be fast. You can't take long to think, and your answers need to be brief or short. Are you ready?
Okay. I'm ready.
Okay. The first one. First thing that makes you feel sassy in the morning.
Looking in the mirror and reminding myself that I love myself and that it's going to be an amazing day.
Awesome. The second one, a mantra you repeat when you are about to speak on stage.
I'm the kind of person who, that, oh, the word, I'm the kind of person that intrigues an audience with being that sassy, classy, badassy stuff.
Uh, okay. A moment in your life when you realized I'm no longer shrinking, I'm growing.
During my divorce, when I realized that I was my children's first mentor and first teacher, and what was I showing them being a victim?
Okay. The last one, what does thriving look like to you right now?
Living life full out and trusting myself. Again, everybody has a different thought, feeling, and opinion. My thought is this is heaven on earth, and I get to choose the way I want to live, and I want to live full out. So, yeah.
Awesome. That is it for the rapid fire round. Thank you so much, Karen. Thank you so much for appearing and spending your time with me. Before we go, I have this one last request from you that please share a final message you have for all of our listeners, what they can do after this episode, what they should be doing after this episode.
Well, I'm going to say they shouldn't be doing anything, right? It's a choice. Shoulds or, just to reframe it, right? Because words create reality. So, abracadabra, what's coming out of our mouths is what we're going to create. So, when you change the way you look at things, the way you look at things will change.
Perfect. That is it for this episode. Thank you so much once again. Okay, have a great day. Thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you found this episode insightful and inspirational at the same time. I'll leave links to Karen's socials and her podcast down in the description for you to go and check it out. I'll catch you in the next one. But until then, take care.